Welcome to this edition of Footprints in American History. Today's edition is about Grace Sherwood, the Witch of Pungo. Now, this may be one of the most bizarre stories I've done, if not the most bizarre story I've done in the hundreds and hundreds of videos I have done to this channel. Now, Grace Sherwood was originally born Grace White in 1660 in Princess Anne County, Virginia. Now, Princess Anne County back then was what is today Virginia Beach, the city of Virginia Beach. Now, where she was born was the Pungo area of there, and her father was a carpenter. Not only was he a carpenter, but he was also a farmer. So he taught her a lot as she grew up. She was an only child. Her parents took very good care of her, but they definitely taught her a lot. They wanted her to be smart, and she was extremely smart. She learned a lot about the land and crops, raising animals, herbs, you name it. She knew a lot. So because of that, it made her very smart and very adaptable to circumstances around her. Now, she went to church with her husband every Sunday. They were very well liked, very well respected for a long time. They were very well known. In the end, her father, when he had died, had left them 145 acres of land. So you know that they had to be very well off, and she prospered in everything she did when it came to the crops and things like that. Unfortunately, that was part of what led to some problems. Now, in Grace's case, she was very unconventional. She was not the typical female of the late 1600s, early 1700s colonial America. Back then, women wore dresses. Now, Grace did not wear dresses when she went out to work. She wanted to be comfortable, so she wore trousers. That was a no-no for the culture, which is amazing considering that she was just simply trying to do the work and be comfortable. However, it caught the attention of a lot of the men, especially after her husband died. So a lot of men were kind of coming forward and trying to make moves on her. Every potential suitor, she said no. She turned them away. She was not interested. However, the men were still paying attention to her. She was tall. She was very attractive. From what I was reading, she was very, very well liked. She had a great sense of humor. She was witty. She was smart. But unfortunately, though, the men were paying attention to her, which got the ire of their wives. So because of that, accusations started coming against her. Now, the first accusation was that somebody's bull died, and they blamed Grace for this bull dying. Now, because of the fact that, she knew how to make the crops prosper. She knew how to raise animals that were healthy. A lot of these people, I guess they must have sucked at farming because their crops were not doing so well, and so they were very jealous of Grace. And I mean, so here, just some of the accusations that came against her. If a bull got sick and died, it was Grace's fault. They've accused her of cursing neighbors' crops and pigs. They accused her of crop failures. They accused her, now Elizabeth Barnes was one of the first one. Her and her husband came out against her and her husband in 1697. That basically got thrown out of court. They came out later and tried to accuse her of witchcraft. Now, in that particular case of witchcraft, Elizabeth Barnes accused her of coming into her room at night and riding her and whipping her. Personally, I would have liked to have seen that. That would have been entertaining for me. So she accused her of doing these things, and then she said she exited through the keyhole like a cat. So really dumb accusations. She was accused of miscarriages. Now here's the irony, is that Grace Sherwood was actually a midwife. She was a midwife. She was a farmer. She was an herbalist. She knew the land. She knew how to get the most out of things. And she was a healer because of these herbs. She knew how to help people. So a lot of times people in the local community trusted her. So they would come to her if there was an issue about a baby that needed to be delivered, or they would come to her regarding something if they had somebody like a relative or a friend, family member that was sick and ailing and they needed help. She would be able to give them a remedy. So it was a really bizarre thing. However, the women were still jealous of her. Another one was named Elizabeth Hill, and she had accused her of putting a hex on her, accused her of assaulting her. Grace turned around and countersued her for 50 pounds She ended up getting 20 shillings. Now, the thing is, though, is that these cases were getting thrown out. However, the courts were getting tired of these constant accusations. Now, unlike Salem in Massachusetts, with their witch trials, they executed a lot of people. Innocent people died. Nobody died in this case. However, injustice was still done, and it was done to Grace Sherwood. So she accused her of these things. Well, what happened is that this was more than once these accusations of witchcraft. So after the second time of the accusation of witchcraft, Grace made a mistake. She did not come to court for her appearance when she was supposed to. Because of it, the sheriff ordered her basically held up, and so they even ordered a body search on her. They searched, during this time of all these accusations over the years, Grace's house was searched twice. Grace had to consent to a physical body search. Now, Elizabeth Hill had accused her of assault and all these other things. However, from what I'm seeing, Grace was the one that got physically assaulted. Now, they literally were looking at her naked body. This was a jury of women that were ordered to look at her naked body to see any kind of signs of evil, basically. So what they were doing is they were looking for birthmarks, freckles, any kind of things like a third nipple, things like that. And they apparently found 2 signs of these devil's nipples that demons were sucking on. That's what they accused her of. So, this was going to the courts. It ended up going to Williamsburg, which was the state capital. They threw it out. They're like, this is ridiculous. We're sending this back to Princess Anne County. So what happened was it just got to the point where they ordered her to be ducked. Now, this was a new one for Virginia. What ducking was that they were going to take her out into a boat, and they did on March 10th, 1706. They took her out into a boat. Thousands of people from around the area, thousands came there. They wanted to see if these rumors were true. So what they did was they bound Grace, left thumb to right big toenail, right thumb to left big toenail. They attached a 15-pound Bible to her. They were basically trying to murder her, but they believed that they were right. Now, the belief then was that water was pure. So that's one of the reasons why they attached the Bible and all these other baloney things. And what they did was they believed that when they threw her out of the boat into this water, into the Lynnhaven River, that Grace, if she went down, they believed that the water was pure. That would mean that the water was accepting her, so it allowed her to come down. And they had this attitude like, well, we could pull her up with ropes and save her life. Well, they still were trying to murder her. However, if the water pushed her up, that meant she was a witch. So either way, she was going to get tested. Now, Grace knew what was going on as far as the weather situation. She's looking around, she's seeing what's going on with the leaves and stuff like that. So she knew that a thunderstorm is coming. I live in Tampa Bay, Florida. We're known for thunderstorms. And I can tell you, you get a lot of lightning, and that's exactly what was coming that day. So Grace said, I be not a witch, but today you will receive a far worse ducking than I. She's referring to the upcoming thunderstorm. So they get her into the boat, they take her out, they throw her into the water. She's got this Bible attached to her neck. She manages to get out of the ropes. She gets them out, she gets the Bible off, she comes back up to the surface, she swims around the boat. She is laughing her head off of these people. She is having a good time, laughing at their expense because they're so foolish. So what happens is, after all these thousands of people have been shouting, duck the witch, the judge decides, okay, we'll just throw her into jail. So for 8 years, this innocent woman goes into jail. And during that time, people were saying that they saw dark figures outside the jail at night. Well, guess what? Grace was a healer. People were bringing her emergency supplies. They were bringing things to help her out, but they were also doing it because they had relatives that were sick. They had people that they were worried about, and she was an herbalist and she knew medicine, so she was able to help them out. So she was still having that. Also, some of those dark figures were probably her 3 sons coming to check up on their mother that was stuck in a jail unfairly. So during that time, she's having to sit there and deal with this. Now, Governor Spotswood, who was the governor of Virginia at the time, decides, you know what, let's just release her. He never pardoned her. He released her. So what happens is she spent the rest of her life till 1740, when she was 80 years old, till she died, living out her life. She lived a very quiet life after the ducking and after all this nonsense of the jail. However, you know it had to have been very, very tense with the neighbors after the way she had been treated for so long. So let's fast forward 300 years to Tim Kaine, the governor of Virginia. This, by the way, they named a major street in Virginia Beach after this event. It's called Witchduck Road. Right next to Centera Hospital, which is off of Independence Boulevard, and Witchduck Road, named in that honor, there is a statue of Grace, and it's dedicated to not only her, but the injustice of people. And Tim Kaine, when he gave his speech that day in 2006, 300 years to the day after the ducking, he spoke about injustice. He basically apologized to Grace for what had happened. Unfortunately, it's 300 years too late. Same with all the people who are going to be remembered hundreds of years later for the way they treated her. Now, there was a little bit of justice that happened to these people after what happened with her. A lot of them still lived in fear because of what had happened with Grace. They still felt she was a witch and all these other things. We're talking after she died in 1740. There was still fear that she was going to possess the local cats. So what happened was, many of the locals decided, you know what, we don't want this possibility, so they began killing the local cats. Well, guess what happened? Cats kill mice, they kill rats. And so they had a rat infestation. They got really bad as a result of their paranoia and killing off these rats. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy this story. It was a really bizarre one. I wanted to tell it because of the injustice that happened to Grace. Also because I lived in Virginia Beach for a long time. It's local history for me, so I wanted to tell a story that had a little bit of the local flavor to the Tidewater area. So I hope you enjoy this story. In the meantime, I hope that you will like and subscribe to the channel. Please tell your friends about it. Please comment on it if you have any questions, concerns, or comments. Like I said, this was an unusual story, so I'm sure there's going to be some unusual comments to this. In the meantime, have a great day, fair winds, and following seas.